All right, we are recording this so that if you need to reference this in the future, this recording of today's broadcast and also the PDF of Hugh's PowerPoint will be available on the same page that the link was found for this webinar. So let's kind of start again. William Maddox, or Bill Maddox. I usually go by Bill, and I'm in New Hampshire, USA. And this is the SMDP Savix online course. I want to do some introductions, and then I'm going to do a little walkthrough of screens. At this point in time, let's have everybody leave their microphones and their video on, and then in a minute I'll have you turn it off. But let me first of all introduce Hugh Allen. I think everybody knows Hugh Allen as sometimes called the father of the savings group movement. He's been working on savings groups probably earlier than anyone, back in the early 90s. Discovered the methodology. He'll tell you more about, actually, if you've read his introduction on the our community page, he gives you some detail of his background. But Hugh and I have been partners working for quite a while. I think since 2005 we figured out, or 2004. And on savings group courses since 2006. We did our first workshop together in Zanzibar, and have been doing this all over Africa, and had a great time, and now online. And we're hoping to continue this online course. As I was saying a couple minutes ago, this is probably the final time that we will be doing an online course, or any courses, supported by the MasterCard Foundation. We've had a 10-year relationship with them. They've made it possible for us to really thousands of mostly African women and some men. So we've been very grateful to the MasterCard Foundation for what they've been able to do. We're also joined on this course by Andrew Manjama. Andrew is with us from Nairobi, Kenya today, and Andrew has also been a partner who has helped us produce a program in Rwanda, has been a participant in our online program, and has assisted with us in several different ways, and started as a student way back in 2007 at the what was called the Micro Enterprise Development Institute, South Africa. And Andrew is going to have an important role of helping you guys stay connected. Andrew knows the Savix MIS very well, and he'll be one of your supports for this course, particularly on the technical end of things. My role will be to kind of be the overall facilitator of all the components of the course, and to back up Hugh and Andrew on the course over the next several weeks. And I'll be the person to communicate with any kind of interface directly with UNH around IT issues. I'll also be the person to contact regarding anybody who still owes payments. And I'll also be sending everybody some really important documents you're going to get if you're a MasterCard funded, which is almost everybody except for our friends in Myanmar. You'll be receiving a acceptance form, which I'll need you to sign, that shows MasterCard that you guys were here, you actually participated in the course. And then I think everybody has been so kind as to fill out the pre-course assessment. It's very important. It helps us to gauge your progress of the course. And then at the very end of the course, you'll do a post-assessment and also a couple different evaluation forms. All of these things are very important for us to help us to be able to document our progress, and also make adjustments should we offer the course in the future, which we're hoping to. So I think what I'd like to do is briefly, while you're we have several of you here on camera with us, I'm going to have you do your introductions. I just want to take you on a very quick navigation so you know what's going on in the Zoom platform. If you'd like to change, I think you can change your view of the speaker. I believe up on the top right it says speaker view. If you don't have that button, then don't worry about it. Down below on the very bottom left, very important button is a mute button. Right now you can leave it on or off so we can hear your microphone, because we're going to ask you to do a quick introduction of yourself in a minute. And the video button, which again, you can leave your video button on. For those of you that don't have a video on, and if you'd like to put it on right now, just for the introductions, and then we'll have everybody turn their video off afterwards so that we have the best bandwidth possible. So, and then on the right, you should see a chat box. If your chat box has not been, if it's not popped out, then what you can do is look for a little thing that says chat. But this is where you can communicate with me or with each other. You can either communicate with me. So I'm going to put a short message here. You used to see my message pop up, and that message I sent to everybody. Wait a minute. I think I didn't. Try it again. I think I just sent it to Andrew. Okay. Down. You should see the opportunity to say it says to, and then you select. If you want it to go to everyone, you select everyone, and then there it is. Everyone should have a message from me. Anyone read? If you see the message, what does it say?
Type right here.
Right here.
Type right here.
Perfect. So if you want to communicate directly to me, then you would type in there and you'd select my name, and you can communicate privately to me or with anybody else in the course. So go ahead and use that. You can also put questions in there during the webinar, so that if you wanted to ask questions, we would do that. So very quickly, we have about 8 or 10 folks on the line. I'd like you to just, so we can make sure that we can hear you and see you. If you have a camera, if you don't have a camera, don't worry about it. But the first person that I see in my display is Cesar. And so Cesar, if you would kindly just introduce yourself, just tell us your name, the organization you work for, and where you are joining us today for the broadcast.
Okay, thanks so much, Bill. Hi, everyone. I'm from Malawi, working with Catholic Relief Services based in the capital, Lilongwe. I'm just new in the system of savings and lending groups. I had the interest last year, and I started straight away into savings and lending and forming groups after an online training and then a hands-on training from a fellow Catholic Relief Services employee. So I'm on the ground now.
Thank you so much, Cesar. Really great to have you. And how about Kia? And maybe I'm not saying your name right. From Myanmar, Kia Min U. Is that how we say it? Kia?
Now.
I don't think his microphone is working. Okay, we'll go on to, let's see. I forget who this is. JA1164.
John Baptist.
John Baptiste, you're right. John
Yes.
Baptiste, welcome.
Thank you, everyone. I'm John Baptiste Achelang. I work for APSI in Uganda. I have at least 8 years for working with saving groups. And like I put in my profile, I worked with 1,615 groups in 35 districts. But now I'm hoping to work with like 250 new groups. Thank you for being part of this training.
Excellent. Thank you so much. How about Daniel?
Oh, this is Daniel. I'm calling in from Kampala. Apparently, I am working with John Baptiste on the same program, but I work for Tricolab. Tricolab is based in New York, but we are part of the consortium implementing the graduation pilot project in Western Uganda. So this project, we are hoping, like John Baptiste has said, we are hoping to work with around 220 saving groups. And I guess this new course is going to be a great addition to the skills and also to the components that these projects will be addressing as we work with the saving groups. I'm so happy to be here. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome, Daniel. Thank you so much for being here. And how about Prudence? Hello, Prudence. How are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Prudence Message from Swaziland. I work for the Center for Financial Inclusion. For savings groups, we have a great interest as an organization because we believe they have a huge role that they play in terms of financial inclusion. So we have an intention to develop a coordinated effort in terms of collecting data from all the savings groups in Swaziland, so that we have one system that manages and we are able to report as a country in terms of the performance of the savings group as a country. And I'm so happy to be. to have attended this training. And I was actually introduced in the same course by Alan. If he remembers very well, he ran the same training it was in Boulder in 2014. So that's when I got an introduction on the same course.
Excellent.
So now I
great.
just, yeah.
Thank you so much, Prudence. That's great. Great that you've already connected with you. How about Abby Bogi?
Yes, please. This is Abby in Uganda, Kampala. I work with HAIFA International on a project called the East Africa Youth Inclusion Program. This project runs in both Uganda and Tanzania. We are new to this, but as a project, we have so far mobilized over 400 groups, youth groups, and all of them do savings and lending. So I'm here with a colleague. Soon he will be joining, introducing himself from Tanzania. But we look forward to learning a lot, especially in terms of having a system that would help us manage the information and the data around all these groups that we are working with. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. I see you're joining us from your mobile office today.
Yeah, true. I'm on the way to the field.
All right. Next, we have Damian. Welcome, Damas.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Yes. Hi.
Hey, Damas. Yeah, I'm Damas Damian. I'm calling from Tanzania. I'm working with the East Africa Youth Inclusion Program, the program that is under HAIFA International and is supported by MasterCard Foundation. And I think Mr. Abby has already said a lot about the project. But I have about 6 years of working with the saving group. But for East Africa Youth Inclusion Program is a bit unique because we are managing the saving groups for youth, of which is very new in most of the areas of our program. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Damas, for joining us from Tanzania. Next, we'll go all the way to Myanmar to Kya Min U. Hello, Kya.
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. My name is John Menu. Yeah, I'm from Myanmar. Yeah, I'm working for DRC organization, Danish Refugee Council. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not good at English so much, but I'm trying to learn a lot to be good at trying. Yeah, to be good at everything. Yeah, that's right.
You're doing fine.
Now I work. Yeah. Yes. Now I'm working. I'm doing SA M&E officers, MIA officers. Yes. I'm working in livelihood team. Yeah. I'm trying so much to be better in my organization. I would like to learn. I would like to learn so much about the saving groups because I don't know so much about the saving groups information system like that. Just only know monitoring and how to monitor and how to evaluate like that. I'm so glad learning here. Yeah. I'm not so experienced about learning course, so it's a little difficult for me to understand what you say like that. Sorry for that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, and your English sounds very good. Just tell me how to say your name. How do you say your name now?
Yeah, Jomi U. Yeah.
Jomi U. Okay.
You can call me Jomi. Yeah.
Jomi. Okay, Jomi.
Yeah, Jomi. Yeah.
Also working with Jomi is Kin Tan. So Kin, are you there?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Hello, Kin. Just tell us where you are today, and say hello to everybody.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Kin Tan. You all can call Kin. I'm working for DRC. We are the same organization with Jome, Danish Refugee Council. Also, I'm not expert to speak English. I'm just trying to understand. And my position is information management. I just joined as a new step from there. For me, I have just experience concerning data. I will learn a lot from you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kin. Very, very good. And Christopher Owak.
Yes.
You will be
Good afternoon, Christopher.
our essence.
Good afternoon. I'm in Kampala. My name is Christopher. Once again, I work with Club from Uganda Limited. We train women VSL financial literacy and business skill. And also, I'm working with another partner called Crib in the West Nile. We're starting from here a lot, second lot in October this year. That's next month. We will also be working with several number of groups, training them in VSL and strengthening those the mature VSL group also. Basically, briefly what I can say what we are doing right now. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Christopher. And now, how about Robert Gonza?
Yeah, finally I'm on.
Welcome.
Thank you. I've just been trying to fix this and that, and I guess I'll have to take off the iPhone. I remain with
We're kind of losing you, Robert. Breaking up a bit.
Oh. How about that?
Yeah, it's a little rough. Well, you're here. That's the most important thing. So we will.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us. And next we have Faith. Hello, Faith.
Hello,
how are you?
Everyone. I'm good.
Hello, Faith.
I'm called Faith Waswadira. I work with a Christian organization called Hope International. I'm Rwandan and I live in Rwanda. I'm now in Kigali. So in Hope International, we just do savings. We have 4 partners up to now. And I think that's all I can say.
Okay.
And I'm working as a quality assurance officer.
That's great. Is there anybody that we missed?
Yes.
Anybody that did not introduce themselves? All right. So let me just tell everybody a couple of quick things and then we'll move on here. First of all, I'd like you to go and mute your own microphone. So make sure that your microphone is mute. And if you'd like to turn off your camera now, you can. It might help your bandwidth, particularly if you're driving in your car like Abby's is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you very briefly to see my screen. And so I want to show you, again, very briefly, a couple of things on the course. Can everybody, one of you can unmute your mic, or maybe you or Andrew, can you see do you see my page where it says course syllabus?
No, not yet.
Not yet, okay. What are you seeing?
Everybody's tile.
You're seeing everybody's tile. You don't see my screen here. Let me try again. This is a little bit of the challenge of the technology is getting the right screen up. Here we are. Okay. Now can you see it says course syllabus? Everybody see that?
No.
You don't see course syllabus. What are you seeing now?
William, I could see it. Abby, here, I'm seeing it.
You're seeing course syllabus? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I can see it too.
Excellent. So just, I'm going to start up at home. I think you guys have been exploring the page, so you kind of know what's going on here, but just so you're really clear is that most often on an introduction page, we're going to, besides telling you kind of what's going on, we're going to give you the opportunity to go off to the next module just by clicking where it says module 1. This is hyperlinked. I'm not going to do that right now because then I want to show you the syllabus. The syllabus has just been updated this morning. There were a couple of minor changes with it, but this is the entire course syllabus. And a really important thing is that this is the course schedule. So essentially, you've already been through the introductory module 1. For the next 2 weeks, we're working on module 2. What is an MIS and how do you decide on its, can't quite see what it says there. And then we have, so we're going to give you full 2 weeks, and then we're actually giving you a week, I'm sorry, we're going from October 22nd to November 2nd for module 4, data definitions, data collection, review, and entry, And November 5th through 16th, Module 5, report preparation, analysis, and application. And then finally, by November 30th, we'll be at ending up having done Module 6, setting up networks and reviewing supplemental utilities. So this is the schedule. We're going to stick to the schedule. It's really important that you stick to the schedule. As you have read about, and if you've experienced an online course, you have the opportunity to do this in an asynchronous manner, which means that the module comes up and you can kind of do it in your spare time. But that doesn't mean you should wait a week or two to get to the module, because there's a lot of work to do, and we're expecting you're going to do 5 to 6 hours a week at least of work on this. So it's important to stay up. If you're having problems, a health issue, a technical issue, problems at work, whatever, I'm the one to communicate with. Let me know that you're having a problem, and I'll do my best to help you out. Please read the syllabus. As far as the modules, Module 1 and Module 2 are up. You will see that we have 2 discussions. We have an assignment. Q is going to go over this in a minute. And we also have, we will have after the webinar today, right here on this page, I'll be putting the link to the recording of today's webinar and also the PDF. I just wanted to give you that kind of navigational exercise. And in the meantime, if you're having any problems with navigating or anything else, please let us know and we'll be glad to help you. And we appreciate everybody showing up here today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Hugh. Hugh and I are going to do a little handoff so that I can give control to him. So here's Hugh, and there we go. So I'm going to, Hugh, I'm making you the host, and that means that you basically can then share your screen. I'm actually making you a co-host. So Hugh, you might see a little message that says co-host. And now Hugh, you are ready to, should be able to go to share screen and be able to share us your screen with a PDF on it or the PowerPoint.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So please stand by, everybody. And those with you that already still have your video on, if you want to turn it off, it might help your connection somewhat. Doesn't matter. So Hugh, what I can see right now is the.
Yeah, it's okay. I have to switch the screens. Okay. Let me just. There is a way of doing that.
Yep. Go up to the top, display settings. Up top.
Top display settings. Where is that? Remote control, more, record. Where are we? Pause share, new share, manage participants. Stop. No, there's no display settings up there, Bill. It's okay. Don't worry. I'll just switch screens manually. Okay. Hold on.
So what we're seeing here is 2 views of the screen. We're seeing this is like the presenter's view, not.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the. I'm just trying to get to change over the screens. Hold on a second. Let's have a look. New share, pause share, annotate, remote control, more, record, disable, optimize. This worked fine yesterday. I don't quite know what's. Wait a minute.
So you were up at the right place just a second ago. You were up at show taskbar, and then display settings. You don't have that at the top of your screen.
I have.
There you go.
Stop videos, mute, show taskbar. Okay, got it. Yeah.
Nope. Your cursor is on something that says display settings.
Is it?
No. Go to the right.
Yes. Huh.
You don't see display settings?
No. Which screen are you seeing?
We are seeing the sharing screen, the one that has the presenter view.
The presenter view. Okay, that's what we have to swap over because I have it on my other screen. I think I'm just going to stop sharing screens.
Now we're good. Now you just have to go to the control that starts a presentation.
That's the problem. It doesn't. It switches over.
And you don't have a display settings. This is what we were doing on Friday.
It worked fine. Yes, I know. That's the problem, isn't it? Let's see. Move slideshow, more slideshow options. Block or unblock slideshow. Zoom into the slides. See all slides. Pen and laser point. I'm going to have to, I'm just going to have to swap. I'm just going to have to turn off my external screen and work off this screen. Okay, just bear with me a moment.
Sorry, folks.
Sorry about this. This, as I say, this worked just fine yesterday. I have no idea what's going on here. Just a minute. Move that.
Right now, Hugh, we see your just the screen with the first slide on it. And if you went down and you selected the play presentation selection at the very bottom there, we would be able to see it fine. Go ahead.
Display settings.
What looks like a little screen.
Yes, you mean
next to the slider, right there.
Yeah, you mean this one. Yeah, the trouble is it puts it up on my second screen. That's the problem.
I see. Okay, you already did
That's
that.
the problem. Okay, record. Just a minute. Right, I know we can do this. Let's just. Sorry about this, guys. Video settings. No, that doesn't help. This worked fine yesterday, Bill.
Yeah, I'm surprised you don't have the display settings because that's what we did last week. I can see it up top on your screen. I can see it says show taskbar, display settings, and end slideshow, and you don't see that.
I see the show taskbar.
Yeah,
that's all I see.
Yeah, and then to your right should be display settings. Some reason or other. Yes, that's it. You're just on it now. Now go down to swap presenter view. We got it. We're all set. The only problem is that we have no sound now from you. Oy vey. We've lost your sound, Hugh. The dress rehearsal went a lot better, folks. Nope, we don't have any sound from you at all.
Here now.
Yes, now we can hear. Now I can hear you.
Okay. Is this even better?
It's a little loud and distorted, but yes.
Okay, fair enough. Let's get started then. Right, let's see if we can make this thing work. Same problem. Just a minute. Display settings, swap presenter, and slide. Bravo. That's it now.
Yep, except you're way too close to the mic. That's the only problem.
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, good.
So,
all right.
Folks, you can tell me via the chat if you're having, just give me some feedback as we're going through this broadcast. If you have any problems hearing Hugh or seeing anything, let me know through chat. Go ahead, Hugh.
Okay. Right. Let me just give you a little background. We started working on performance measurement back in about 1993 in Niger, and we used a very simple Excel spreadsheet. And over the next 7 or 8 years, we developed 4 different versions of the spreadsheet, and I think some of you are familiar with that. And we ended up with version 4.04, and about 5 or 6 years ago, we decided that Excel had its limitations. It was not able to really handle the volume of traffic that we were working with. It couldn't really do very sophisticated analysis, and it was working off a single computer, and it was constantly running into corruption problems. So we shifted to an online version, which was called the Savix MIS, the same as this one. And we ran that for about 4 years. And last year we decided we would do a major upgrade to the system because when we did the original design, we thought we would end up with maybe about 400 or 500 projects. And in fact, right now we have more than 4,000 projects on the system. And so we had to create an upgrade. And that upgrade is the one that we are working with right now. It was released in April, and we have done quite a bit of bug fixing as we go forward. But it now seems to be pretty stable, and people are generally speaking satisfied that the new system is more flexible and has much greater capacity. Okay, now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to talk a little bit about, this session is all about architecture. When I go to a country office and I work with an organization, I don't switch on the computer usually for the first, at least for the first couple of days. I spend a lot of time talking to organizations about how they want to set up their system. And what is the objective of their program? How many projects are they likely to have? And what do they want to learn that is not standard data? Do they have any specialized data needs, and so on and so forth? So we spend a lot of time before we get down to starting the system, deciding how we're going to set it all up. And that really is the subject for today, because if you get the architecture wrong at the beginning, if you don't set up the system in a thoughtful way, thinking of the long term, you can run into lots of difficulties for the future. So we've had the experience of people opening up the system, starting and creating projects, and then coming back in about a year's time and saying, oh, it doesn't work for us because we need to create another project with different data fields. How do we do that? And we have to do a lot of what you might call retrofitting and sorting out a problem that you can avoid if you think carefully about how you're going to configure the system. Okay, so before we get to there, though, I want to actually talk to you, I want to ask you a few questions, okay? And the first question I have is, what is a management information system? Now, would anybody like to tell me, before I get into what is a management information system, can somebody tell me what do I mean when I use the word data? What is data? And is it different from information? Can anybody, just start speaking on their microphone and tell me?
Or you can also type into the chat box and I'll read it off.
Mm-hmm. Can anybody describe the difference between data and information?
To me, I think literally, we use the word data to mean numbers.
Yes.
It could be qualitative, it could be quantitative, but most of the times we have used the word data to mean numbers.
Right.
Collected over specific data points. But information, it's broad and it's general. It could reflect the qualitative, the feelings, the emotions, which to me I think is the difference.
I think you got the first part correct. Data is just numbers, okay? Now, if I said to you, this group has 4 members and this group has 2 members, that is data, correct? Okay? Now, but if I said the two projects, the two groups together have 6 members, that is 4 in one and 2 in the other, that is information, because you're taking the data, the 4 and the 2, but you're turning it into something useful, and you're saying, in total, we have 6. Or you could say, we have 2 projects with 6 groups, two groups with 6 members in total, so the average for each group is 3. So we've taken the raw data, and we've worked on it, and we've made it into information, okay?
And Hugh, we have a couple of comments from Daniel. We have data the differences that data refers to information related to on a specific topic of study. And Christopher says, data is raw facts that can be processed into meaningful form that is information that can be used for decision making. And we have Prudence, who says that data is not yet processed. It does not tell you anything till it is interpreted. So this is
exactly right. These are excellent comments. Prudence, I congratulate you on that. Because basically that's the point. Data is just numbers, but it isn't useful until you convert it into a form that is useful to people. So, for example, if I say for example, that I have 3,000 groups, okay, that tells me I've got 3,000 groups. But if I then said I have 30,000 members, I would then be able to say that the average size of a group is 10 people. So essentially, that's right. You're taking numbers, but you're manipulating them to turn it into something that is useful to people who are going to make decisions. So what we then say in terms of a definition of a management information system is this. An MIS is a system in which data is collected, processed and analyzed and delivered to decision makers at all levels in a program or project to make informed, appropriate decisions. Okay, so that's basically it. Now, the question I've got for you then is, who are the people who do you think, are users of management information system information? Can you give me a kind of quick list or type into your sidebar, who are the people who are likely to be using it? Who uses it?
Management uses it.
Management uses it, yes.
Yeah, we could also use it at on different levels, sections. It could be for strategic planning. It could also be just to assess how the program is moving. So it basically depends.
Okay, so you're basically talking about managers and senior staff who can use it for planning purposes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, who else would use information?
We have from Caesar program managers and field managers.
Yes.
And from John Baptiste, finance and donors.
Yes.
Gordon says policymakers to inform interventions.
Yes.
Abby says savings group leaders. Go ahead, whoever's
How about that? Yes, you're actually talking about the actual members of groups, right? Do they need information?
Go ahead, Faith.
For me, I think all decision makers, they just need information.
Okay, so who are the decision makers? You've talked about managers, you've talked about donors. What about, and you've talked about program coordinators and so on. What about, and somebody mentioned groups. Who else do you think needs information in order to do their work properly in a program? I mean, basically, you've talked about the big bosses and you've talked about the groups. Is there anybody in between?
Yeah, but I think the people who work with saving groups, day in, day out, need this information to help them understand areas where these groups may need to be supported best, and how best they can be helped to improve in the way they are running and managing the groups.
Excellent, excellent commentary, actually. So basically what we're looking at really is we're looking at two clusters of information. Okay, and I'm going to start off with what I think is the most important cluster. Okay, here we've got members. Members of groups, they need to manage what they're doing inside a group. They need information. You might have village agents in your program. They need to know what's going on. Field officers need to know something about the quality of the work that they're doing. And supervisors who are supervising people in the field, they need to be able to know which of their field officers are working well and producing good results. So all these four levels that I've talked about here are focused on the field, okay? Now, there's a different level, which is program coordinators and managers, country managers, international officers, donors, and the media and the general public. So, you know, the interesting thing here is that most of us, we focus on the second cluster. The quarterly report comes around and we rush to provide what is needed. But most programs don't really use MIS information to improve what's going on in the field. They tend to go out, it's like a vacuum cleaner, and they suck up all this data and they feed it to their donors, they feed it to the country managers and the international officers, but very often this information does not go back to the field to improve what's going on. And this is an important point to make because the MIS has been designed to work at both levels, to satisfy the needs to improve practice in the field and as well as reporting to donors and senior people. Now, let me ask you a question. How does this information change as the users change? As you go from members to village agents to field officers to supervisors to program coordinators, donors, media. How does the information change? For example, if I'm a donor, am I going to be interested in what happens with a single group? Hello?
For me, I think as the users are being changed, even the information will be changed. Because if you are maybe the field officer and you were getting information from the village agents, and now the village agents have changed. It means that if you are going to work with the new village agents, the information will be changed somehow.
Right.
So as the providers are changing, sometimes can affect the information.
Well, let me ask you this question. If I am a donor or I'm an international office, am I going to be interested in what happens with an individual group, or am I more likely to be interested in knowing how the program as a whole is performing?
Yeah, I think you, as a donor, you'll be very much interested in knowing how the program generally is performing. Say you have 600 groups. The donor will be interested to know how many groups have been reached, how many of these groups are functioning, and how many members are there in these groups. While at individual group level, the field agent would want to know in which areas does this group perform well and in which areas it does not perform well, so that he or she will be able to go back and troubleshoot. So that's how the information changes.
So basically what you're saying is that as you move from the field, towards donors and an external audience, the information becomes much more synthesized. Would that be correct?
Yes, yeah.
Right, so we have a process of synthesis. So members would be interested in knowing, for example, who is late in paying their loan. Okay, field officers might be interested in knowing which groups are weak and which groups are strong. Supervisors might be interested in knowing which field officers are performing better than others. Okay, so as you go up, the information becomes more and more synthesized. So your MIS, in order to be useful, it has to produce reports which are useful to people at different levels, but it becomes more synthesized the further you go up. Is that pretty clear? I hope so. Okay, let me move on. Now I'm going to show you, and I'm going to be talking here rather than asking questions. I'm going to give you a rough idea of how very often an MIS is built into a program. So let's say we take a typical program. You have maybe a national NGO and you have an implementing partner, okay? Maybe in the partner you have a senior management team, you have field officer supervisors, and you have field officers. I haven't shown village agents, but you could have those as well. You have somebody working in MIS, and very often with the international agency, you might have people helping in training. So what will happen is the training that initially takes place is that, in terms of MIS, is that the technical assistance is to help the supervisors and the field officers understand the meaning of the data they are collecting, to make sure that the data is accurate. And one of the biggest problems that we have in the MIS is bad data from field officers and a lack of scrutiny at the level of supervisors. So this is a very, very important step. Okay, once these people are trained, the MIS is actually set up inside the organization, usually inside the organization. Okay, once all this is set up, people are trained in the data collection and you have an MIS ready, then you have the savings groups and the field officers collect the data from the savings groups and they deliver it to the person who is responsible for running the MIS. Now, some programs use village agents to collect data, but we think it is better if you use field officers because they are generally better educated and you don't have to train so many. But some programs do use village agents to collect data. But the data goes into the MIS, and once the MIS is loaded with data, reports can be produced which go to the supervisors or coordinators of the program. And the first thing that happens is that this data goes back down to the field officers. So you're seeing a circular flow of information. So the principal purpose of the MIS is, first of all, to make sure that the field knows that they have the tools in their hands to know how well they're doing and where they need to improve. And once that process has taken place, other reports can go to the senior management team and the implementing partner, and possibly to the the training agency. But I want to stress that for me, one of the most important flows is data coming to field officers, going through a process of report preparation and flowing back down, certain reports flowing back to field officers, and then different reports going to senior management teams and to possibly the training agencies. So that's roughly how an MIS is usually set up inside an organization. Is there any questions on that or any queries before I really get into the whole question of architecture? You can always type any questions you have into the sidebar.
I don't see any questions, Hugh. So you can...
Okay, let me proceed. Right. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through the process, not the process, I'm going to describe how the system is designed. So if you are running an MIS, imagine this gray box here, this surrounding box here, is the MIS. And there must be an MIS administrator, and there must be at least one project in an MIS. You cannot set up an MIS without a project, okay? So, the MIS administrator, they create the MIS. It's their job to create the MIS, and it's their job to create projects, and they give credentials at the project level. Do you know what I mean by credentials? Anybody know what I mean by the word credentials? What are credentials?
Passwords? From
well, it's two things. Yes, passwords is part of a credential. What's the other part?
Username.
Yes, that's right. Your username and password. Just like going on to Gmail. You need a username and you need a password.
And there's a question, what do you mean by project? Okay.
A project is a discrete, okay. A project is, well, let's take an organization that is dedicated to creating savings groups, and it has managers and it has field staff, and it is a project. It will usually be focused on a geographical area and a specific target group. And one of the objectives of this project will be to create savings groups. So within the MIS, you identify that as your unit of analysis, of collecting data, so you know what's going on inside the project. Right. The MIS administrator can also create user-defined data fields. We have what we call standard data fields, things like the name of the group, things like the date that the group was formed, the number of members. But some projects want to create their own data fields which are not part of the standard data set. The MIS administrator can also configure the project and change any of the settings and produce management reports, but the project manager, the MIS administrator, does not enter data. Okay, Now, when we look at the project administrator, you must have a project administrator. Okay, this is the person who manages the day-to-day process of entering data and producing project level reports. So their job is, the first thing they have to do is they have to create a table of trainers. Each project usually has people who go out into the field and create groups. And they could be what we call field officers or village agents. They could be both. And these are the people who do training groups. The project administrator can also change the configuration settings, just the same as the MIS administrator, okay? And they themselves can also enter data in a project, usually on a small scale project. And they can also create reports. Now, these are people you must have working. You must have an administrator to create the MIS and to set up a project. And you must have a project administrator who puts in the names of the people who are the trainers and manages the configuration settings and can enter data. But in a big project where you have lots and lots of trainers and lots of data, you may have a person who is a specialized person who enters data, and we call that person a data entry officer. So usually you will have a data entry officer on a large scale project, 1,000 or 2,000 groups. But on a small scale project, the project administrator can do that work. And they both at levels, they can create and manage operational reports, but the data entry officer cannot change the configuration settings. Okay? That's not possible. That is only to be done by the project administrator. Any questions about that? All right.
Excuse me, Hugh.
Anything coming, Bill?
Yes, Hugh, the data entry officer also cannot set up the table of trainers, right?
Yeah, no, actually they can. That should be included.
Okay.
Okay. The only thing the data entry officer cannot do is configure. Now, when I talk about configuration, I'm talking about things like saying when the project starts and when it ends and what the budget is and whether or not you want to post the data to the Savix website and so on and so forth. The data entry officer can't do that. What I should have included here, and that's a very good observation, Andrew, is that they can also create a table of trainers. Okay? Right. Any other question on that? Okay, so here we've got our first project, and you're off and running. Once you've done all these steps, you can start to enter data and produce reports. But let's take, for example, a project which might be a health project. And let's say you want to know the number of members of a group who have been vaccinated. You cannot, that data is not part of the standard data. So that's something that you might want to add. And if you want to add a user, what we call a user-defined field, this has to be done by the MIS administrator. And let me show you what that looks like. So we still have an MIS with a single, well, this is actually not correct. This is, okay, here we have, this should be multiple projects. Here we have MIS administrator creating a project, and here is the one we've just created. But then there's single project. Now then, here we have it with the MIS with multiple projects. So now we've got project 1, project 2, and project 3. Now this is a big difference between this MIS and the old Excel MIS. With the old Excel MIS, you could only have one project. With this MIS, you can have as many projects as you like inside an MIS, right? Okay, so we've got the MIS administrator here who has created 3 projects. Now, the MIS administrator sits down with, you know, senior management, and they say, well, we want to know other things, not just the standard data, which is related to the savings group, but maybe we want to know how many women are female heads of household, something like that. So they decide to create what we call a user-defined field, okay? And then once that is created, the user-defined field will automatically show up in all 3 projects. You don't have to do it project by project, okay? Now you can see the advantage of this, because this means that you are automatically asking the question for all the projects inside your MIS. Okay, and so all the user-defined fields created by the MIS administrator automatically appear in the data entry fields of every project in the MIS. And we call these user-defined fields, they fall into 2 categories. One is called SDFs. They are what we call standard defined fields. And the other ones are UCFs, or user-created fields. Now, a standard defined field is a field that is already available to you, which you can choose from a list. You don't have to use it, but you can choose it from a list. Okay? User-created fields are those which you create yourself. They are not part of any pre-configured or pre-formatted system. So you have 2 types of user-defined fields. I don't want to get into too much detail about that because we will potentially confuse you. I just wanted to, we'll get into it later. But the idea is that an MIS administrator can create a lot of, they can create a lot of user-defined fields. Now, can anybody see, we have here an MIS with 3 projects, and they're all sharing the same user-defined fields. Can anybody tell me what the disadvantage could be? What the problem could be when you create user-defined fields that apply to all the projects in an MIS?
One problem could be that not all projects may require the kind of information that will be collected in the user-defined field.
That's exactly correct. So let's take it, for example, that you, in one MIS, you have a project which is involved in agroforestry and another one which is involved in health. You can't have user-defined fields for health, which you would expect people in an agroforestry project to answer. So you're a bit stuck, aren't you? Because you need to be able to, you want these user-defined fields for your project purposes, but if they're not compatible across the entire program, what do you think we have to do in order to be able to have user-defined fields which are related to a particular set of interests?
And here we have related comments from Prudence. What if the data is not relevant for the other projects? Caesar, projects can have different aspects or fields. Robert, different donors have different needs.
Exactly. This is exactly the point. So, I mean, okay. And for example, if I take a project in Tanzania called CODET, okay, which is a partner of Plan International, they have something like 11 projects in one MIS. But the reason they are able to do that is they only have a very limited number of user-defined fields. So they made a decision not to bother with user-defined fields because they wanted to put all their projects in one MIS. But if I go to Rwanda, there's a project there run by an organization called AEE, and they have different projects in different MIS, right? And they do that because they have different user-defined fields, right? So let me show you, does anybody want to comment further?
I don't think so, Hugh.
Okay, let me move on. Now, this is how you would resolve that problem. Okay, you have an MIS here, an MIS here, and an MIS. Okay, and what's happening here is you have one project here, one set of projects here. You have a project here, project here, project here. This is savings groups only, this is agriculture only, and this is health only. So each one has their own user-defined fields, okay? And the MIS administrator can create those user-defined fields for each MIS. So this one would have user-defined fields which focus only on agriculture, and this would have user-defined fields which focus only on health. But the problem is, how are we going to, now let me give you another example here. I have 3 projects. I have an MIS in Kenya, an MIS2 in Kenya, and I have MIS3 in Tanzania, and I am Plan International, let's say, okay? Now, how am I going to be able to get reports which enable me to aggregate all of those, because they're in different countries, they are possibly in different organizations, although let's say in Kenya it's the same organization. But how would I be able to connect all those together to aggregate them? Does anybody know what the answer to that is?
I think I would create I'd create a network.
Yes.
I'd create a network to match those that I want to report on.
Right. So here, for example, I create a network. Now you have to understand that a network is not part of an MIS. It could be, you can create a network in London and link together projects in South Africa and Malawi and Ghana. And it can be completely independent of local project management, but you can connect projects. So here we have, for example, we have 4 projects that I want to connect. The yellow ones here, you see them? So the network administrator sends invitations to these projects to join the network, but does not send an invitation to these 2 projects because they have nothing to do with the network administrator's interests. Okay? Okay, now, so here we have invitations and acceptances. And the independent network administrator can also create what we call NDFs. Can anybody tell me what you think NDFs stand for?
It means network defined fields.
Yes, it's network defined fields. So for example, I could, for example, if I'm Plan International is an organization which focuses very heavily upon children and upon education. So they may, for example, say that in all of their projects all over the world, they want to know how many members are female heads of households. Okay, and they can ask that question and it will go to all of these projects. So if I go back, let me go back a screen. Let me go back 2 screens. Okay, now here I have an MIS with projects in it, and they're all sharing the same user-defined fields, okay? And that is set up by the MIS administrator. If I want to go beyond that and I want to link together MISs in different countries or even within a single country, I need to create a network. And here, as the network administrator, I will not see the user-defined fields, because the user-defined fields here in Kenya for this project and this project and this project could easily be different. So if I'm a network administrator and I say I want to know all about the number of female heads of household, I can ask that question as the network administrator. So this is completely separate from the MIS administrator. Okay. Now, I hope this isn't too confusing. But I'd like now to stop. This is the end of this this PowerPoint. So now I would like to ask if there are any questions which relate to what you've seen and any clarifications that are needed.
And you can open up your mic if you want to ask Hugh directly. I did get the comments from Robert. The question was, or we do not need an MIS in that case. That was in reference to what you said a couple minutes ago. And Abby just asked, I hope we will get the recordings and the PDF as you mentioned, and yes, you will. The recording will be up in a couple of days. The PDF will be up, is already up.
Let me ask a question though, because you said, or you may not need an MIS. That was Robert, is that correct?
Yes.
Could Robert perhaps enlarge on that?
Yeah, so you talked about an IMIS admin.
Yes.
As one who creates the project credentials.
Yeah.
I think that's correct. Now when we talk about an independent network admin who is linking up different projects from, well, this in case we are talking about say, maybe different countries. So I am wondering if we have an MIS in each of the countries, does that mean that the independent network administrator just has to link at the different MISs, or he has to go directly to the different projects?
It's the second. You don't link an MIS, and the reason for this is, let's say, for example, you are, I don't know, let's say you are Barclays Bank and you're running a program called Banking on Change, which they did in several countries. So you could, in this country, have a Banking on Change project, but this project here has nothing to do with Barclays Bank. So when you create your network, you are just connecting the projects which are the Banking on Change projects, and you ignore the others. So you can't go to the MIS because the MIS, I mean, you go through it, you bypass the MIS, and you go directly to the projects because of those projects share a common interest.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Maybe, hello?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe to add on what Alan has said, is that the network that is set is to show the general performance of different projects that have the same goal or objectives, not just going into the data entry or whatever. So it helps in seeing the performance of the same kind of project with the same goal in different locations.
Very good. What I would like to point out is when you're looking, and we're putting the cart before the horse a bit, but let me explain something. When you look at the project, you have the opportunity to look at information connected to individual trainers. So is a certain trainer performing better than another? Is a certain supervisor doing worse than another and needing some support? So you're actually focusing on field operations. When you get to the MIS level and when you get to the network level, you're looking at upper level reports which look at the aggregation of project performance. So you're not looking at individual trainers once you get up to these higher levels, okay? So it's only at the project level that you really have a heavy focus on field operations.
Hugh, Caesar has asked a question. He says, Hugh, I'm a bit lost when, he says, when will the network admin come in to inform project and get the field, e.g. number of female-headed households, so the project collects the information with other project information?
Okay, well, one does not set up a network without a lot of discussion. For example, I was recently in Uganda, and I was working with an organization called Profira, Program for Finance in Rural Areas. It's a national program. It involves working with 12 different organizations. And they're all different. CARE is there, Acholi private sector is there, a number of different local organizations, and they're all over the country. Okay, so they all came together in Kampala and they had a discussion, and the discussion was, what network-defined fields does Profira, the head of the project, want to receive from the field, and can the field provide it? So after a long discussion about what was useful information for Profira and what was practical to collect, there was agreement as to what that information should be, and Profira then created data collection forms which covered the data that needed to be collected. So if you join a network, you're sent an invitation, and you can say no. You have to voluntarily accept it. And the understanding is that the network administrator has already had a long discussion with you about why they want you to join their network, what the information is that they would like you to provide, and then it is a matter of your own decision as to whether or not you will participate in that network. So it's not just something that comes out of the blue. You have to have a long period of preparation for it.
Okay, and Caesar says thank you. That's now clear. And then there was a comment from John Baptiste. I hope we will have an aggregator to solve this network issue to participants.
Could Jean-Baptiste explain that a little further, please?
Yeah, in the previous times, there was an aggregator where you have several projects where you want to see how each of these projects is performing in relation to the parameters that you want to measure.
Yes.
So I think this is also why the network is, so that we see the performance of the groups, the performance of the field officers, etc.
Yes. I could actually show you what that looks like, but maybe we're getting down into a bit too much detail. The important point to remember is that this is a very different system to the old system. The old system, you had to feed in data files into your aggregator, and you've got a very limited number of outputs. Now what you can do is you can create a network, and you can go into that network and you can select the projects you wish to aggregate, and you can also compare the projects that you want to compare, and you can select the metrics that you want to use for comparison purposes. And that is also true at the MIS level. At the MIS level, inside a country, you can aggregate your projects, you can compare them, and you can select your metrics. And that is also true at the network level. The difference, the only difference between aggregation and comparison between MIS and network is that at the network level, the money is denominated in US dollars because it may be comparing different countries. Other than that, it's the same. But this is something I think is a very important point to understand right at the beginning. Actually, in terms of setting up networks or not setting up networks, it's something that we cover extensively in Module 5. But it's important that we understand the implications right now, because the key point is this. If different projects have different information needs, that may force you to create separate MISs, okay? That's a key point, okay? I just want to field any further questions that you have before I make one final point. Are there any further questions on anything I have discussed so far?
Doesn't look like there are. I just wanted to point out that in the chat box, I put the email address that you should be contacting Hugh directly. If you have any questions after this webinar, please go to that email address that I just put in there.
And I see it, Bill. Confirm that it's right.
You can just look at your chat box, Hugh.
Okay, it's just, hold on a sec. Right, okay, just a minute. Okay.
And now I've also gone to the page for the rest of what we are going to be doing in Module 2, and I'm going to ask you to just briefly walk us through what is going to be happening after this webinar.
Okay, right. Okay, after this webinar, there's going to be a discussion forum, okay? And I'm basically going to be asking a couple of questions, which are based upon some of the topics that we have talked about. And Bill is now showing you what those questions are, okay? The first one, I think, is an interesting point. There is a trend these days for organizations to have M&E departments with MISs that cover every single type of activity that the organization is working with, okay? So it could be that within this M&E system, you're covering health, you're covering agriculture, you're covering livelihoods, all kinds of things. The MIS that we are talking about here covers only savings groups, okay? And the real question we have is, why is this MIS different? And then the second question is, there is a chart which comes with this. I don't know if you can show that chart, Bill. If not, I can. It's a MIS discussion one.
The chart is not in here. I'll put that chart up. Don't worry about it.
Okay. The chart basically, okay, maybe what I can show what it looks like. Is that feasible, Bill?
Sure.
I think I'm going to have to go out of here. Let me just go take a look at it. Module 2. Okay. Right. Here we are. Now.
You have to share your screen now.
Yes, I'm going to do that now. Where is it? Share screen, share screen, share screen.
To the bottom navigation bar.
Yes, I'm looking at it. Share screen, right. Here we go. Right, okay. Tell me when you can see this chart.
Someone want to type in, you can see it? Yes, they can see it.
Okay, this basically shows savings groups providing information to field officers who collect data quarterly. It shows the information flowing into an M&E department, which is entered into the MIS. And then it shows reports which are going upwards, and some of those reports are going all the way up to external audiences like program managers, headquarters, donors, and so on, and other reports which are flowing back down to the field, okay? So that chart it shows you how the information is flowing, and it shows you which reports are being received at different levels, okay? Now, so it says, the attached chart shows how the Savix MIS is structured and who received what reports. It shows that one cluster of reports go to managers, various headquarters and donors, while the other cluster goes to field staff. In what important ways do you think that the information will be different for each stakeholder, including the savings group themselves, and how will it be used differently? So we've got two things to discuss, okay? Why do you think that the Savix MIS is a bit different from the normal cluster of M&E or the umbrella-style monitoring systems in organizations? And then secondly, I want you to consider how information is going to change. I want you to look at the different reports people receive and why do you think this is different for each stakeholder? Why is that important? So that's the question we have there. Okay, Bill, I can stop
right.
sharing.
Okay. And then what we're going to do is, in the meantime, I put that chart up there. So
Oh, you have, okay.
I think what happened was you might have edited it and deleted it, but it's up there now. And then, so the other thing in module 2 is a case study. And so just so everybody kind of knows what's going on. Everybody see the case study now? Can you see that, Hugh?
Yes.
I want to just explain to him, I'm not going to go into the whole case study, but just kind of explain to him what they need to do.
Okay. The case study is, the objective of this case study is it considers 3 different organizations working in the same country. Okay. And these 3 organizations are being assisted by an international NGO. Okay, so they're all receiving support from this international NGO to implement their programs. The question is, what decisions are going to be made about the architecture of the MIS? Does the international NGO create an MIS and just create projects for the individual organizations? Or do the individual organizations create their own MISs? And if so, why? And will it be necessary, if you want to understand, if the international organization wants to understand what is going on, will it be necessary to create a network or not? So these are the questions that are being asked. So take your time over it. I think, I don't know if you can open that, Bill. Probably not necessary, but the point is...
That's what they've been looking at. I opened it up when you started talking.
Okay, fair enough.
So the important thing is that you're doing this in a Word document. You're going to upload it with the convention that I put there for identifying the assignment in your name, and you're going to upload it, and then we can then grade it from there. So
right.
And then the final thing, after you have done the case study and answered the questions and uploaded it, is a final discussion.
Right.
Oh, this is not the right one. Sorry.
That's the wrong one. Okay, go here. Yes, that's right. Okay.
And then Hugh has asked 3 questions related to the architecture.
Okay. So, the first question I'm asking is, taken as a general principle, who should run an MIS? A national agency that creates projects on behalf of its partners, or should the partners themselves create an MIS? This is an important discussion. Many international NGOs find it very convenient to create projects within a single MIS for their partners. Other organizations prefer to spend a little bit more time allowing the local organizations themselves to have their own MISs, so that for the longer term they can expand and grow. So that's the question. Which one do you think is the most practical? And the second question is, how does a national project running in several distinct regions of a country influence the way you set up your MIS? I want you to think about this a little bit. So, I'll give you an example. Barclays Bank had a program called Banking on Change. And when it was introduced by Plan into Tanzania, instead of having a single project, they created 4 different projects. Although it was a Banking on Change and it was the same project, they subdivided it into 4 smaller projects so that they could look at each area differently. So that was one thing they did. Okay, and then I'm not going to give the game away too much with the next question. If a local organization has 2 projects in the health center, 1 in the savings group sector and 2 in the agricultural sector, and each one with user-defined fields that are mostly unique to each project, what choices do you think they will make in setting up their MIS? We've covered a lot of this today, I think, but I do think it's important for us to have these discussions. And the first discussion begins now, and when will it conclude, Bill? I think it concludes on the
Yeah, I'm gonna leave them open for the 2 weeks of the until the next module. So your responsibility, just to go back, take it from the top, for module 2, is to go and join these 2 discussions, complete the case study and upload it, the questions for the case study, and get all that done before the next module begins, which is going to be on, actually we're giving you a little bit of a time between now and the next module doesn't actually begin till October 8th. So you have even though it says that this ends on September 28th, you actually have another week. I'm going to leave those discussions open. We're giving a little bit of lag time here just to make sure everybody is on board with the platform and on board with the learning, and everybody knows what's going on. After October 8th, it's every 2 weeks we have a module and lots of work to do. So don't fall behind. Ask me if you have any technical questions about the platform or anything to do with your enrollment. Ask Hugh if it's specific things about the course, and then Andrew will be getting involved in a pretty significant way shortly when we start setting up your projects and getting you guys connected to the MIS. But don't jump ahead on that, just wait for that. So all right.
Okay, let me just say one final thing, Bill.
Yep.
When part of the course is you're actually going to set up an MIS, okay, and it's a structured MIS. We're all going to set up the same MIS, but in order to do that, you need to have a unique email address with a unique username and password. And to help you out on that, I've created Gmail addresses for every one of you. And I will be directly emailing that email address to every one of you. And what I would like you to do before the next session is to confirm that the email address is working and that you have no problems with it, okay? But I will send you, each one of you individually, through your emails, I will send you the email credentials, and you then check it out and get in touch with me to confirm that it does work. Don't just assume that if I don't hear from you, it works. I want you to be active and to respond to the email and confirm that it's working, okay?
It is very important that we do hear from you and that you don't lose things in your inbox. Just pay attention to things coming from SMDP so that we can make sure, because this is a technical program where you're required to come in and be a part of the MIS, and without the credentials that Hugh is going to send you, that'll obviously be impossible. So, and any other questions or any other problems, let me know. As I said, this is going to be, it has been recorded. We will put the recording up in a couple of days, so some of you who might have come in late, you can join. Those of you that took the time to answer questions either on mic or type in questions, we really appreciate that. I also just want to encourage everybody, when you go into the discussion board, I will send you some guidance on how, and I think it's in the syllabus, there's some guidance on what you're expected to do within the discussion board. Being part of an online discussion means you need to say more than just "I agree" or "that sounds good" or something like that. We want a little bit of content, a little bit of thought into what you're putting in there. You're not required to have a lengthy back and forth, but that's actually where the discussion board is for. If you have technical issues and questions, having some back and forth discussion is really helpful for everybody to help learning advance and help people understand what we're talking here, which is a fairly complex software and application in terms of your own organization. So please use the discussion board well. So I also appreciate everybody sticking with us for an extra time. We did not really anticipate putting introductions into the first part. I'm glad we did. Got a chance to see you and hear you in all your locations from all over Africa and Myanmar. And so we really appreciate everybody being with us today. So thank you, Hugh, and thank you, Andrew, and thank you to all of you for being a part of our first webinar. Do the homework, do the reading, send us your assignment 1, and if you have any questions, please let us know. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm ending the broadcast.